Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got another video in 6.5 Creedmoor. And this one I have been meaning to do for a little while now, just haven't gotten to it. This is going to be the hunting load we'll use in 6.5 Creedmoor this year for deer. And the reason it took so long is because I was waiting on these 140 grain Speer gold dots. That's the bullet for today. These were available, and they may still be available for direct order from Speer. Now, the 120 grain Speer gold dot are rather reasonable, something like $13 to $14 for a box of 50. These are $20 a box of 50, which makes them a little less affordable. So about $40 a hundred, I suppose, is not too bad, makes them 40 cents a piece. Still a whole lot cheaper than trying to buy factory ammo from the store, especially at today's prices. Other components for today, we're using the Starline small rifle primer brass. I had everything together, and I was planning to use the Federal Gold Medal Match large rifle primer, but I forgot that the brass that I had prepped up was small rifle primer brass. So, because we have so many loads already with the CCI 450 primer, we're going to do the Remington 7.5 today. I've had good results with it in the past in other calibers, so we'll use that. The powder is H4350, mostly because that's the only powder on Speer's data sheet that I actually have. We are going directly off of Speer data for today's test. When I looked up data from different component manufacturers for 140 grain bullets, they all seem to kind of agree around the 42 grain max for H4350. So we're going to do our standard load workup today and go to a max of 42 grains, starting at 40.4 grains and moving up in 0.4 of a grain increments. I have measured the distance to jam, both overall length and cartridge base to ogive, using the Hornady comparator, and we're getting a consistent 2.296 inches to jam. Because I only have about 3 weeks until rifle season, we're probably not going to do a seating depth test for this bullet before hunting season. We may do one afterwards, but not right now. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and shoot this test at 20 thousandths shorter than jam, so we're going to shoot for 2.276 on our cartridge base to ogive number. I think that's all of the data talk out of the way, so let me get some of the stuff out of the way and I'll start priming up this brass. So I'll get my scale turned on here and warming up, and I'll set it to not turn itself off. It is about 60 degrees in my basement where I'm working right now, so I will definitely let it warm up for a bit. Make sure I get all of the H110 out of the powder trickler. Definitely don't want any of that in our loads. Alright, let's get to priming. I am going to use the Hornady priming setup again. Tell you what, let's try something different. Let's go ahead and try that Lee priming tool. I had problems when seating small rifle primers with it before about kind of making a half moon shape indent on the primers. Because this is quite a bit better brass than I was using before, and the seating pressure is a lot more consistent, I want to see if that sticks around. If it does, I'll switch right back to the Hornady tool. Alright, and I am remembering now, the one problem I had with this is the number 4 shell holder that I used for 223 and 300 blackout is a little sticky in here, and actually, yeah, I can't pull that out by hand. The other ones were fine, but that one stuck. So let me grab something. Well, here we go. Let me see if I can lever this shell holder out here. Good night. Oh boy. might have to get a bigger tool. That is one problem with some of the Lee components, is they have a little bit of quality control issue. Tell you what, let's not use my finger as a lever. Stick a block of wood in here. And, oh, there it came. All right. I may have to file down that shell holder somehow. I did go in here and polish this up with sandpaper, and that didn't help. And you'll probably see here the other shell holders fit in there just fine and have no problems popping in and out. It's just this number 4 that binds up right there. So anyway, let me look at the chart here, and we'll see if we can find the proper shell holder for it. I'm looking for 6.5 Creedmoor, 308, any of those case head sizes. All right, 308 takes number 2 according to this chart. And yeah, that fits in there real well. So let's make sure this one doesn't stick. No, it's just fine. All right. The other thing about the Lee priming tool is that you do have to buy this priming tool shell holder set, unless you're just priming for 1 caliber or 1 cartridge head size, and then you can just buy that shell holder. But I think this set was like 12 bucks or something. So not terrible, but it does make the $20 priming tool actually a little more expensive. All right, we'll stick that in. And the handle, because I do so much reloading, I may end up upgrading this whole setup at some point and buying something a little bit better quality, and definitely we'll probably have to spend a little more money, but we'll give this a shot for now. So because I don't know how well this is going to work, I'm only going to stick 10 primers in here for now. Okay, and this primer tray is exactly the same as the primer tray on my Lee Loadmaster that I've got set up for 9mm. Just clicks into there, and then you turn it on. Then you've got to, we'll see if I can show you this in depth. Okay, so to load the first primer, you've got to run it through a cycle, and it raises the primer up in this chamber here, and then it slides back in. So let's see how well these prime. Okay. Yeah, right there, I think I can get it to show up on the camera. Right on that lower edge. It's not much, but it's there. Let's do another one. All right, and I did not get it up, the next primer to feed up there. I may have to shim that elevator. So let's load another one in. Okay, on that one it's a little more pronounced, but not terrible. I can just barely feel it with my finger now. Let me try seating one. Okay, there I didn't add any extra pressure to it after it hit the bottom, and it is standing proud, but there's no indent on it. I'm not feeling anything on the primer seating spot that should be doing that, so I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, there is that little extra that it needs to sit below flush, and yeah, it gets that half moon. Not very Not a very big one, but it's there. All right, well, let's switch back to the Hornady seeding tool then. And I'm using the green tray. Since we're using an RCBS shell holder. We'll use the small side. I should probably put the lid on this so I don't spill them. Okay, that's locked off. Oh, looks like I dropped one primer. We'll go ahead and sit that in there. And of course it got jammed up because that's what they do in this. Alright, let's just put it together. Alright, press it down. Put in my shell holder. And this Hornady tool does use the universal shell holders, which is nice. And it also squeezes from this side, which I like better than pressing by thumb. I really had high hopes for this one, though. I used one. My dad had a similar one, and I used it quite a bit for 9mm, and it seemed to work great. So I don't know why this one is leaving those crescent-shaped indentations. All right, let's go ahead and single load a primer here, and we'll see how it does. All right, I've got it seated perfectly there, and there's no little half moon indentation. So we'll continue to use this tool. I may see if this one works better for large rifle primers. If it does, we'll just set it up for large rifle primers and forget about it. Yeah, this one's seating in perfectly, so we'll just continue on with this. It probably will flip a primer. But hopefully not. I'll just keep a watch right in here and make sure that they're feeding correctly. One thing about this Hornady tool is that the shell holder does tend to rotate, and then you gotta like spin it back into place. I wish it had some sort of an index point so that it would lock in straight, but that's just a minor gripe. One reason, besides for safety, that I want to make sure that these primers are seated below flush properly, or, you know, at very least at flush, is it'll mess up my bullet seating depth measurements because I measure from the base of the cartridge to the ogive of the bullet. So if that primer is protruding a little bit, it throws off that measurement by several thousandths. So I want to make sure that that primer is not bearing into that equation at all. Time to measure powder, and this shouldn't be anything new. I don't know if I talked about the brass before and what I did to it, but it is once fired. The shoulder bumped back 2 thousandths, chamfered, deburred, and then the whole thing tumbled, so they're nice and clean and get all that lubricant residue off. Our first charge here will be 40.4 grains. Got the 1.9 cc scoop. This may be, yeah, we're down at 27 grains. I must have been using this scoop with 6.5 Grendel. Let me set this one aside and see if I can get the right one. Let's go to the 2.5 and see if that's closer. 36 grains for a full scoop. Let's try a heaping scoop. I may have to go to the 2.8. Yeah, heaping scoop puts me at 37 grains. I'd like to get about 3 more grains, maybe 4 to 5 more grains out of a heaping scoop, just for ease of throwing. Let's see, a mostly heaping scoop of that gets me to 40.8 grains, which is perfect. We'll go with a level scoop, and that ought to have us pretty close. Okay, there's 40.2, and we'll trickle up from there. All right, there's 40.4, and our scale should be good and warmed up, although it's showing 20, there we go, 26.3. Yeah, it's giving me 126.3, so that'll be good. Yeah, that's throwing 40 grains pretty consistently. All right, nothing exciting here. I don't expect any compressed loads. Well, I suppose we'll get to that at bullet seeding. And got a little too much there. But yeah, I'll just keep weighing out this powder and come back to you at bullet seeding. Powder charges are weighed. I took a minute to get a fresh cup of coffee, which I probably shouldn't be drinking since I'm going to the range right after this and don't want to jitter, but you know. Alright, these Speer bullet boxes are always a little bit tough to pop open. So the first thing I'm going to do here, I've got two different seeding stems. We'll see, oh, that one's got a pretty good fit. That's 397106. And this one is about the same, and it's unmarked, so I don't know if they're the same stem or not. But we'll go ahead and use this one. Pop it into the die, and I'll top it off with my micrometer cedar stem. Alright, now this die is already set up as far as backed out a turn so we don't get any crimp. So what I'm going to do is just, since this is the Hornady lock and load system, I'm just going to line it up in here to where the I can see the marks. Instead of trying to turn the whole die until where I can see the marks, I've got this that I can adjust with. So that will be good. We've got this backed way out. We'll get the shell holder here. 2.276 inches, cartridge base to comparator on the ogive is what we're looking for. All right, we'll just see where we're at. Got 2.303. We're going for 2.276, so let me just come down 30 thousandths. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and we'll see where that puts us. All right, so that got us just a little bit short. A little bit shorter than I would have liked. 2.272. We're shooting for 2.276. I'm not worrying about that too much, but let's go ahead and back off 4 thousandths. And seed our next one. Set this right. 2.276. Yeah, that's right where we want it. Oh, let's see here what our max, or what our cartridge overall length is. 2.835. Let's see what the Speer data recommends for a seeding depth, just out of curiosity. 2.7 inches overall. So we are 135 thousandths longer than that. I suppose that's to fit into Sammy Max. But, you know what, just for the heck of it, I'll seat one on this case so that we can see where the bullet is sitting. Okay, so with that seating depth, we are sitting with the base of the bullet right at the bottom of the neck. And I am perfectly okay with that. Perfectly okay with that. Like I said, we'll probably do a seating depth test later on, but for now, this should be good. Before I load too many more of these, let me throw one of these in my gun and just make sure it chambers. Alright, this is a big gun and not a lot of room on the bench. But we'll see here, make sure the safety is on. No problem whatsoever. And got a little grease on the bullet there. Yep, doesn't look like it's jamming in or anything. Let me try one more, just to be sure. Didn't feel difficult on the bolt close whatsoever. And the bullet looks fine. I'll take a quick measurement to make sure it's not pushed back, but I highly doubt it. Nope, we're still at 2.276 on the cartridge-based OJAB number. All right, let me go ahead and seat one at the highest charge and see if we're compressed at all. Nah, I still hear powder moving in there. And it looks like we're about the same overall length. This one's 1/1000th different, but not gonna worry about that at all. So, all right, we're good there. I'll go ahead and seat the rest of these bullets. Then I'm gonna go vote because it's election day, and then get out to the range. All right, we're out here at the range shooting our 140 grain Speer gold dot load, starting out with 40.4 grains. All right, that first shot was to the left by 2 MOA, so I'm going to move and fire the rest of the group after scope adjustment here. Well, that is an excellent start. I'm going to go down there and check on my target camera, and we'll shoot the next group. Alright folks, so you may be wondering, why are we jumping to the target footage so quickly? Well, it wasn't the camera's fault this time. It was actually my fault. But I lost the rest of the range footage, and I do apologize for that. However, I will not cheat you guys out of range footage this video. We will get to some range footage, and we'll talk about that in just a second. First, let's take a look at these groups. Started out with a 0.98 at the lowest charge and ended up with a 0.85 at the highest charge. None of these groups were super bad. We had 1.25 inches for our worst group right here, which is a lot bigger than I would like. But you could see some weird things might have been happening right in here. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Our next group at 41.6 grains was 0.71 inches, which was our best group of the day. And I'm going to be very happy with that group. Let's take a look at our velocity numbers. And again, forgive my chicken scratch here, but we had some really good extreme spreads and standard deviations, even on this group that opened up. So, with that being said, the load we're going to go with is 41.6 grains. It had our second, well, it had a good extreme spread and standard deviation. I guess we go first, second, third. So these two had crappy extreme spreads and standard deviations, and then these three were all good. But we're going to go with this charge weight right here, just because it did give us our best group, and it seems to be in a good range right there. 41.6 grains may sound like a familiar number, and that is because that's the same charge that we ended up with the 140 grain Sierra Match King. Not surprising, I suppose, but I'm glad we kind of came to similar conclusions and shot the best group with 41.6 grains both times. That kind of tells me that this is a pretty good node for 140 grain bullets. You could argue that I should maybe go with the 42 grain charge instead, because it had a little lower extreme spread and standard deviation and the group wasn't that much worse, but that additional evidence of the Sierra Match King shooting best at 41.6 is part of the reason that I'm going with this load here. Maybe that's ill-informed, but we'll see. With that in mind, I have loaded up 25 rounds with that combination, 41.6 grains and the 140 grain Speer Gold Dot. What we're going to do is get out to the range, and hopefully I'll be able to get this footage for you guys. And we're going to confirm our hunting zero. We're just going to do a dead hold zero at 100 yards. And then I'm going to shoot 3-shot groups all the way out to 500 yards on paper. That's something I haven't done before, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. So we're going to shoot 1, 2, 3, 4, and 500 yards with 3-shot groups, and then we will have 10 shots left over for hunting season, which should be plenty. If not, I can always load up more. I've got plenty of components for this particular load. So with that in mind, let's get out there and get shooting.